I'm going to walk through the first half of the dispute over slavery in Kansas assignment, where you are comparing two accounts from a pro-slavery and anti-slavery settler in Kansas. These are two leaders. Actually, Henry Ward Beecher didn't come to Kansas, but David Rice Atchison did. And how I would expect the graphic organizer to be filled out. So this is the assignment on Google Classroom. You should have a graphic organizer that looks like this. The questions are the same for each document, but obviously the answers will be different based on their perspective. So, let's start with the Voice of Kansas, Let the South Respond. Let's see if I can find that one. The links here have the documents, so that's not it. It is the second link. Okay, Fighting for Slavery in the Kansas Territory. This first section just has some background information, which you should have already received in the Edpuzzle video. The answers to the questions come from these documents. Each document in this first half does have a little paragraph at the end that explains who this was written from. So let's try this first one together. The first question says, what is the author's point of view on the topic of slavery? Okay. So if we look here and read that paragraph, in 1856, David Rice Atchison and other pro-slavery supporters wrote the pamphlet, The Voice of Kansas, Let the South Respond. They wrote in favor of making Kansas a slave state. Okay, so I can stop right there. I know that his perspective is going to be pro-slavery. So in there, you could put pro-slavery. You would probably know that this one is anti-slavery, but we'll get to that. You can get to that later. The next question is, how do they describe the opposing point of view? Opposing meaning, how do they describe the anti-slavery settlers? Because that would be the opposite of pro-slavery. So if we go back to our document, we're going to read it, and we're going to see what he says. So, the Voice of Kansas, Let the South Respond. Appeal by the Law and Order Party of Kansas Territory to their friends in the South and to the law-abiding people of the Union. That a state of civil war exists among us is abundantly evident. The Law and Order Party on the one side, opposed on the other by the abolitionists, sent out and sustained by the immigrant aid societies of the North. So there's so much in here we already have knowledge on. You've learned about the immigrant aid societies. You can tell in his writing that he believes the Law and Order Party, so law and order would be a good thing, are the slave supporters. He says that on the other side are those opposed by the abolitionists. That's the group. Oh.
I am returning galleries.
All right. A brief review of the points at issue and their controlling circumstances may be useful to justify this appeal for aid. So he's asking for money. In territorial politics, the question of free and slave state has swallowed up every other. The abolitionists, on the one hand, regard slavery as the greatest possible evil. They deem it a monstrous national crime. They feel bound each to struggle for its overthrow. Their perverted consciences justify any mode of warfare against slaveholders. Many of them already go so far as to oppose all law, religion, property, order, and subordination among men as subversive of what they are pleased to call man's natural and inherent equality. And with them, it is no mere local question of whether slavery shall exist in Kansas or not, but one of far wider significance, a question of whether it shall exist anywhere in the Union. Kansas they justly regard as the mere outpost in the war now being waged between the North and the South. And winning this great outpost, they will be open to an easy conquest of the whole field. Hence, the extraordinary means the Abolition Party has adopted to flood Kansas with the most fanatical and lawless portion of Northern society, and hence the large sums of money they have expanded to surround their brother Missourians with obnoxious and dangerous neighbors. So, a couple things he uses to describe the other side. And I'm going to go down to my answer key here. So we have he supports slavery, he's pro-slavery. A couple things he uses to describe him. They do not follow laws and ignore property rights. They do not support religious beliefs. And if we come back in here, maybe something else was that they are lawless. Okay, they are lawless. You could add that too. Okay, so he doesn't speak kindly of the anti-slavery people. So let's think of the next question. Why do they believe their point of view is right? On the other hand, the pro-slavery element of the Law and Order Party of Kansas, looking to the Bible, finds slavery ordained of God. They find there, as by our law, slavery made an inheritance to them and their children forever. We believe slavery is a trust and guardianship given us of God for the good of both races. Without sugar, cotton, and cheap clothing, can civilization maintain its progress? Can these be supplied without slavery? So we come back here again. Why do they believe their point of view is right? So, why do they believe their point of view is right? Well, it says a couple things. That they are for the rule of law. The Bible and God support their position on slavery. And they talk about how slaves grow these things that are important to civilization. That kind of answers the next question too. What do they think will happen if the opposing point of view wins? Well, back here they said, without sugar, cotton, and cheap clothing, can civilization maintain its progress? So they're saying that civilization as they know it, without slaves producing cotton that makes cheap clothing and sugar, that things won't operate the way they had been, that society itself will collapse. And the one question here, how does each side use loaded language in their writing? Well, a couple examples of that. Up at the top, he says things like their perverted consciences. So perverted is like something, it's not good. So like if you're conscious, like good and bad, right? They're saying that it's not what you want it to be. They say they oppose all laws. Abolitionists flood Kansas with the most fanatical and lawless people. So a fanatic is someone who is diehard about something and won't ever give up on it because they have this strong feeling about it. So fanatical, and calls them obnoxious and dangerous. So these are strong words that they use to describe the other side. They don't just say like they're dumb. They use these strong vocabulary to describe the other side.